Hey everyone, Value Add Mike here today to discuss how to save money on your insurance for your next multifamily investment. For those who don't know, my name is Mike Taravella, Value Add Mike, and me and my business partners manage over $100 million in commercial real estate. And today I wanted to share with the limited partners how to make sure they get the best insurance quotes for their deals. And so when I as an operator are going on site, I'm looking for these things, and I want to make sure you as a limited partner can ask these things for your next deal, or even check with yourself online. So first things first, the first thing I check is the property in a flood zone? And so I think of Florida, Texas. I know I've mentioned this quite a bit in my previous videos, but if the property is in a flood zone, you're at risk to see higher costs of insurance at the beginning, but also you're just at will to just get a lot more rate increases. I've talked to brokers that said cap rates have increased 1% to 2% in Louisiana because of the flood zones. Florida's had $2,000 in $1,000 to $2,000 in insurance, and it only looks like it's going to go up because the cost to insure these buildings are higher. So just first thing I ever do is check a flood zone. And the one time I didn't check a flood zone, it was the last thing I did, and I was just distraught because of it looked like a good deal until I checked the flood zone. So insurance is nothing to mess around with. I've seen anywhere from 20% increases to 100% increases just this year, and it's getting harder and harder to insure, and that's why I want to do this video to help. So first things first, you can still invest in a flood zone, just to be clear, but you just got to make sure that your operators are properly insuring insurance increases year over year and not just doing it on the front end. So be careful with that. The next thing I'm looking for, though, in a property is what kind of electrical breakers there are. There's a couple no-goes where we know we have to immediately renovate it or even work with the seller to make sure it gets remediated so that we can make sure we have it insurable, because having bridge insurance is very costly. So Fed Pacific, Zinsco breakers are absolute no-goes. And I think anytime you see those is generally in the 1970s, 1960s in the Southeast. So just be careful with your building and just making sure you have those breakers, and because that could be anywhere from $3,000 a door that you have to renovate day one, or else you're going to pay for it in insurance and eat your cash flow. And it's a costly project, and it can be very detrimental to the residents. One, it needs to be done for safety for them, but two, it's just moving them around, moving their stuff, and having to update that can be a process. So making sure as a limited partner, if you see the vintage, making sure you understand those breakers and that, so that you can have the highest cash flow and profitability for your property. And the last thing, doesn't get talked about too much, is making sure safety. And I think about it in a couple different ways. Like, you can see cracks on sidewalk, but essentially you have to look at it as an insurance provider of how can someone get hurt. So when you think of ponds, is there gates around the property with railings? I think of baseball games where people fall over. You want to make sure railings are 48 inches or taller for the maximum safety. With those older, thinner railings, you may have they may have to be replaced right away to help make sure it's insured, or at least have a game plan for it. Making sure that the spokes, we've seen properties where spokes are missing or subfloors missing, and just, you see a lot of different stuff when you see heavy lifts and multifamily value adds. But it's making sure, if you see railings, asking the operators, is it a concern for insurance, or does this need to be rectified? And so just making sure when the operator's on site, I show my investors pictures just to kind of make sure that they understand, and we know these things. And so that's why I wanted to share with you as limited partners what questions you need to ask and what to look for, especially when you see the beautiful picture books, because those could be insurance liabilities, and I want to make sure that you're protected. So if this video got you any value, please like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter for any deal updates in the comments. And until then, we'll see you next time.